And that was kind of one of my first, but I was so addicted to self-sabotage, the ride down, the ride up, the ride down, the ride up. And I would just basically shut everything off. So I'd find a way to go travel into different cities. Never had a marital affair, never was unfaithful in that regard. But what I would do, I was unfaithful in the fact that I would never tell her the truth. And that's where I started my hero's journey, that hero's walk. And it's the hardest walk you could ever take as a man, but it's the most rewarding, and the vantage points are so beautiful along the way. And that's when I had to go start working on it. We have a saying, don't meet the standard, be the standard. It's a tall drink of water, because you got to remember, guys, we're all perfectly flawed. So give yourself some grace.
Yes.
I mean, we were created to be perfectly flawed, and that's the most perfect thing about us. The minute I became ultraly vulnerable, it became a superpower for me. Drop the mask, drop the old body armor. The most dangerous things you can say to yourself are, what will people say and what will people think? No one cares.
Well, welcome everybody into the Revolutionary Man podcast. I'm the founder of The Awakened Man and your host, Alan DeMonso. Manhood is under attack today, and it's because many of us feel that we're trapped, that our lives are predestined, and the effort to change just isn't worth it. It's truly a sad state, to say the least. Now, maybe you're not that guy. And so I ask you, is your life firing on all cylinders? If that's great, if that's the truth, then good for you. But my experience is that in my life, rarely is it firing on all cylinders in all aspects. So what do you do? Well, today my guest is going to share how he got fed up with the status quo, turned his life around, and started a movement that's changing men's lives and the communities that they're involved in. Now, before we get into all that, I just want to remind you to hit like, subscribe, and share on your favorite platforms so you can stay updated on the latest content while helping me grow the Awakened Man message. And for that, I want to say I'm truly grateful. So let's get on with today's episode.
The average man today is sleepwalking through life, many never reaching their true potential, let alone ever crossing the finish line to living a purposeful life. Yet, the hunger still exists, albeit buried amidst his cluttered mind, misguided beliefs, and values that no longer serve him. It's time to align yourself for greatness. It's time to become a revolutionary man. Stay strong, my brother.
So how are you feeling that you have the will to fight for what you believe in? And if so, do you have the resources and capacity to do it? There's going to come a time in our life when everyone's going to be tested, where our true character is revealed. And for many of us, we might not like what we see. My guest today has faced those tests, reflected on what he saw about himself, decided it was time to change. With limited resources, he went after it. So allow me to introduce my guest today. Cole is a leading minister of impact whose life has seen him hit the lowest of lows to living fully, completely, and free. After liberating himself, he founded School of Man, an organization that builds real men through raw and real vulnerability, cracking the code to having it all. Nicole has a beautiful wife, Ashley, and two beautiful children, Ava Madison and Landon. They live in Little Rock, Arkansas, and he loves nothing more than spending time with them, making memories and seeking adventure. Welcome to the show, Cole. How are things today?
Brother, I'm extremely grateful. And for your audience, for listening purposes, just with your introduction, super powerful. I have chills coming up my arms and goosebumps. You can't really see it, but what I would like to start off with is my ethos. And our ethos, which is our Constitution and the SOM. See, the SOM was School of Man. I never drew up a business plan. And I think a lot of your men that are listening, just like a lot of the men that we serve, they think that you can hit an Amazon Prime button sometimes and then life just automatically delivers a solution or answer or resource, whatever it might be at your doorstep. But what we must never forget is you have to trust the process, and you have to focus on yourself in the most selfless way possible. And circumventing any pain is going to short circuit your growth as a man, and you're going to absolutely miss the beautiful moments in your life when you look back, because we're not here very long. And when I crafted this ethos, it was myself, the founders of SOM, and I think it's going to really resonate and really be a good kickoff to the show. And I say it with an absolute love in my heart. It courses through my veins. I say it every day when I meditate. It's my prayer, if you will. So Give me just a few seconds, and I think this would be a good kickoff and a good segue into this episode, brother. You cool with that?
I just love it. That's perfect. Absolutely.
All right. As a man, I will treat every day as it is my last. I will take on the everyday responsibilities as a man with a warrior mentality. I will not exist. I will live. I'm loyal to God, myself, my family, my brothers, and my wife, and I will give my all to bettering myself daily. I'm to be the man that Ashley dreams about at night but gets to wake up to in the morning. I'm to be the father and the hero that Ava Madison and Landon need, and the man they need me to be. I'm a fierce and special breed of brother to my team, and I'm never backing down as life throws its spears at me. Instead, I view the spears as an opportunity to grow and help others with. I have found my why. I'm grounded in my purpose. I'm not lighthearted. I am lionhearted. I'm secure enough to show the world my flaws, but fierce enough to attack them head on. And when I make a mistake, I will own that mistake and suffer the consequences like a man. Have integrity in every aspect of life, but the humility to not boast about it. I know who I am, and I'm in control of where my life is taking me. I have earned my team's ethos, and I push towards earning it every single day. And I'm actively conquering my core five while helping others do the same. I'm a leader, whether it be to one or many. I'm called to lead. I've learned to hold others lovingly accountable like a true leader would. My mind is unbreakable. My spirit is unshakable. And when you look inside my soul, you'll see a warrior phoenix with fire in his eyes and ashes dripping from his wings due to rebirth, due to the 1 second contract he has signed and owned every single day. I'm always pushing forward. I'm never looking back. I take my why, my leadership ability, and my experiences, and I liberate men like I have liberated myself. I've been blessed with gifts I will not use for selfish gain. Instead, I will share with this world, and I understand by helping one, I can help change one life at the time. So that's that ethos. That's my shoreline, brother. And that's how I typically start off shows or end shows. And that was crafted out of an awakening, like you've talked about, out of revolutionizing oneself and liberating oneself. And it really goes back to my favorite quote out of Atlas Shrugged. I don't know if you've read that book or not. And I'm a big Ayn Rand fan, and I've got it up on my wall here. And it's, John Galt says it, and it's towards the very end. Do not let the hero in your soul perish in lonely frustration for the life you deserve, but you have never been able to reach. Check your road in the nature of your battle. The world you desire can be won. It exists. It is real. It is possible. It is yours. And between that ethos and what Galt says in the book Atlas Shrugged, that has been my biggest awakening and my shoreline as a man to run towards the pain, run towards the adversity, because I was at a place to where I was benchmarking myself like so many alphas do on what we've been taught and what we were raised to think is this is how we should be and this is how we should operate. So, to me, what you're doing is changing the world. We're putting a dent in the universe. We're the modern day Steve Jobs. And for all you guys that are out there listening, it's never too freaking late. It is never too freaking late. And it's something that we're talking about in the School of Man right now. There, our guys across the country and world are going through Hell Week, and we program that pretty much every quarter, but it has deeper meanings because post-traumatic growth is so important. We talk about trauma in a negative light, which understandably so. We all have experienced trauma. We got to work through it. There's so many of us that have Band-Aids on our hearts, wounds that we just will not explore. But the world has sold us a book of lies. And the number one, the world's greatest lie, and this is what we were talking about today, is that at a certain point in our lives, we lose control of what is happening to us, and our life becomes controlled by fate. That's the world's greatest lie. And that actually comes from the book, The Alchemist, and phenomenal book. If you've not read it, pick it up. It's super easy read, phenomenal read. And I have it on my board behind me. What bullshit lie are you telling yourself right now? And calling it caviar. So anyhow.
Love that, Cole. Love that. Aho, brother. That's just so powerful to kick us all off today and on this conversation. And it's so true, right? That we tell ourselves so many lies. And that was, one of the things I wanted to get into, but I really wanted to have people, one of the things that we talk a lot here in the Awakened Man is about everyone being on their own hero's journey or their hero's quest, as we call it. And so tell us a little about some of your journey and how that paved the road to who you are today and the work that you're doing, brother.
Man, I love that question. Your personal legend being the hero of your own story. I think a lot of people watch a bunch of YouTube videos, get hyped up by Eric Thomas, love ET, love all the guys that you can see out there and grab a motivational clip, but they never will take their own journey.
No.
And that's just the sad truth. And that's just the reality in today's world. We're in such an information age where everything's at your fingertips. So why do we not have more millionaires? Why do we not have more men that are revolutionizing themselves? And it goes back to a simple fact that it's a choice. And when you take the path, and that's what we call it in Psalm, the path, it's not a 4-lane interstate. It's just not. It's every hero has to go through the abyss. You go back in time when all the books were written, etc. You go, and I've read one, it was a long time ago, and it was talking about the hero's journey, but in Greek mythology, and about how the abyss, and it's basically a former self converts himself into a future self, but he has to go through the agoge, and he has to go through these periods of times in his life that are heavily laden with meaning, the term crucible, right? And for me, really where that was the first 5 to 6 years of my marriage. And I will say this on the front end, I don't regret anything, not one bit, because I filter everything through the lens that everything has happened for me, not to me. Mm-hmm. And I build such a big future that my past really becomes irrelevant. And I shake my former self's hand and say, thank you for getting me here, but I have to go to this next level, the chase, like Matthew McConaughey talks about. But really what it is, I've been married for about 11 years. And the first 6 years were a sham. And I basically made a decision. My wife and I, we got married when we were 28. I'm 38 years young. Guys, you're not old. Don't ever say you're old. If you're 60, you're 60 years young, 70 years young, so on and so forth. But 27, 28, I made a decision to get out of corporate world and start my own business. And I took a hefty pay cut. But that's what we want to talk about, what all we want to achieve. But how many of us actually talk about what we're willing to sacrifice? The facts of it, the facts are, though, I met Ashley on eHarmony, and it was super fast. And it was when online dating was first becoming a thing. I was tired of running the bars. I was tired of just womanizing. And that actually came from a wound on my heart when I was 18 and lost my virginity to my girlfriend, and she lost hers as well. But the guilt was there was just a lot of shame on her part, and she put it on me. And so I told myself I would never get close to another woman. That's how the womanizing started, etc. And it became more of a game and a competition for me where I'd never let anybody get close. That's how my marriage started with Ashley. And just to kind of give you some ESPN highlights, guys, and this would not be in the top 10. This would be kind of those 10 bloopers, if you will. And she's a special woman that has been put in my life, and I owe everything to her, and I owe everything to her sticking in there. But our rehearsal dinner night got completely blitzed, ate Adderall, stayed up all night. Adderall is a big thing when I was coming through college, and it was not used to cram for tests. We ended up using it for partying and just going hard, right? And I started using that professionally to get another edge in addition to cocaine. But I could put on, it was like the Wolf of Wall Street, if you will. I can put on a mask. I can go perform. I'm #1 in sales. I'm making 6 figures. I'm coming back to Little Rock, Arkansas, thinking I'm a big guy, driving a company car, buying everybody's liquor. I was just seeking other people's validation. And that's really what I brought into my marriage, right? It was a facade when I was single, and it became a bigger facade when I was married. So that night, I tried to go get some play, cracked my way into her room. She ended up bawling. I bounced off the bed drunk, fell on the floor. That's how I started off my marriage. My honeymoon, we didn't have sex all week, and everything to me was about sex. And because that's what we've been taught to benchmark ourselves on. And because it was that time of the month for her. Well, oral sex was not in the cards. I didn't realize that at that time she had gotten taken advantage of when she was 18, 19 years old. So me being selfish, stormed out of the room, left her crying in the shower, told her I didn't want to be married, and went and got blitzed and had some tequila shots at the bar. So just to kind of give you guys a inward look into my life, I'm a very open, honest, raw, and real dude. So for the first 5, 6 years of my marriage, that's how it really went. We get home from Costa Rica. She's pregnant with Ava Madison. Fast forward a year, I have a blown Achilles. I'm making no money. In fact, when Ava Madison was born, she flatlined on the table. I had little money coming in because I started my business, and all I knew what to do was go produce, because that's what I'm really, really, really good at. I'm a shark. You know, God put our eyes in the front, not in the back, for us to pursue and look forward. And that's just the truth. I'm a hunter at the end of the day. Whatever I obsess on, I will get. And when she was born and she flatlined, it just kind of stirred some emotion in me enough to be like, shit, I got another human that I'm now responsible for. But now I also got a ton of debt and no money coming in. That winter, I in fact had to take a barbecue magazine back to Lowe's because we couldn't afford the formula. And I wasn't going to ask her parents for money, and I wasn't going to ask my parents for money. That's just, and I'm so grateful for those sacrifices along the way, but what no one was seeing, so I could get an edge, right? Like and I'm a pressure. Yes. Eric Thomas says it all the time. Pressure creates diamonds. Give me the ball at the end of the game. I'm the same way, but if you don't know how to handle that, there's a dark side to pressure too. And if you don't know how to control that dark side, that dark emotion, I call it my dragon energy, then it's gonna gobble you up. And so what I started doing is basically eating Adderall again. She ends up getting pregnant with Landon, and I started doing cocaine, but I could function. Business was growing, bank account was getting full, and that's really what my first 5 years were. And what really woke me up were a couple of things. Number one, the night I did cocaine and went out, partied, came back, only to make her a cup of coffee and us leave where we were. She had no clue, and the state trooper pulled me over, and I have a pregnant wife, and I'm high still. And that was kind of one of my first, but I was so addicted to self-sabotage, the ride down, the ride up, the ride down, the ride up. And if we had a lot of time, I would go through my entire story, and I can go back and pinpoint stuff on where and why. But the biggest thing that I struggled with her is lying. My marriage was a sexless marriage. So what did I do? I chronic masturbate. Like I was a teenage boy coming into his own. I mean, and this isn't to be made fun of. This is life, and this is just how we were created, etc. Right? Like I'm not, it just. So what ended up happening? I quit pursuing her. I looked at her differently. Oh, she's had 2 kids, 12 months apart. She's she's overweight. I'm not attracted to her anymore. And I would just basically shut everything off. So I'd find a way to go travel into different cities. Never had a marital affair. Never was unfaithful in that regard. But what I would do, I was unfaithful in the fact that I would never tell her the truth. I would get very close, right? Like, and it was one of those deals. Do you still got it, Rodgers? All that good stuff. So what I didn't realize at that time is that I was in the abyss. I was starting into the abyss, and I ended up going to the Masters and eating Adderall, partying all night, going to a strip club. And this is the industry that I'm in, right? This is what kind of is like, hey, go hard, hang out with the Owls at night, wake up with the Eagles in the morning type of deal. And with that being said, that's when I got to North Carolina to see her and the kids for a wedding. I just lay down on the ground. I hadn't been asleep in 2 days and just sweat, and my heart was racing. I said, man, this is enough. What are you doing? You're going to end up just absolutely killing yourself in a hotel room. And I had acid reflux so bad because of the stress I was addicted to. And that's where I started my hero's journey, that hero's walk. And it's the hardest walk you could ever take as a man, but it's the most rewarding, and the vantage points are so beautiful along the way. And that's when I had to go start working on myself. And I've always been an avid reader. I've always been into personal development and growth, but I was one of those guys at that time that spoke it and didn't really live it. I spoke it and lived it half-ass, if you will. And there's a lot of people out there on Instagram that do that right now. And anyhow, that's when I got myself into therapy. And that's when I started the deep exploration emotionally. And what really started making the shift for me is that I went out to the West Coast, linked up with some SEALs, and I did something so radical for me at that time. And if you want an unrealistic result, you got to find unrealistic people to surround yourself with. I had no clue who these guys were, but I met a man by the name of Brandon that was out there. And this guy was in his mid-40s, successful entrepreneur, businessman, just absolutely jacked. but he had just this coolness about him, just complete swagger. And it's because he had earned it, and he was completely raw, completely real, just absolutely like, it is like God put him in my life to say, brother, if you want this, you can get this, right? Don't let the hero in your soul perish in lonely frustration for the life you deserve. It exists. It's real, right? Like we talked about.
Yeah.
And that's really where it started, brother. And I'll never forget running that first mile to the beach. And it was my first mile I'd ran since post operation, because I had a Achilles tear, 2 surgeries, staph infection, whole 9 yards. And it really screws with your mind, in particular for active guys. And I just didn't have the tools and the techniques, but I knew that I had to go into the belly of the beast. I knew that I had to go explore who I was. I knew I had to be just raw and real and truthful, and basically throw the middle fingers to the world and just say, you know what? I don't care what others think, and I don't care what others say. And I really had to start practicing the subtle art of not giving a fuck. And that's just where things started really shifting and shaping for me. But I'll end on this. We as men mistake movement with progress a lot. And there's truth in that statement, because I have experienced it more than once. And if you are gaining a ton of insight from these podcasts or your coaching or your mentorship, wherever you're getting it, and you're not putting action behind it, it's absolutely worthless.
Yeah.
It's absolutely worthless, because there's a civil war inside all of us. Former self, future self, you got current self right in the middle, right? Or the two wolves, right? The Cherokee legend. But really what happened for me is that I ended up taking on a Hell Week simulation, Navy SEAL Hell Week simulation. And this was the first time I've never done anything like this in my life. So it scared the shit out of me. And I had to pass PT test, the whole 9 yards. And I got just infatuated with that lifestyle, and I got addicted to it. And I'm glad I got addicted to it.
Yep.
But I didn't know how to control my dragon energy at the time.
Yeah.
But I still had not killed one thing that was holding me back from living fully in my marriage. And that was lying to Ashley. I was so addicted to white lying to her, because I had bought a CrossFit gym at that time. It's a dumpster fire, complete fraternity, sorority type of crap going on, shoveling cash in it just to keep it open, to pay people, extending lines of credits. I can tell everybody what not to do and what to look for in that. I would never tell her, because I was so embarrassed, so ashamed. And us men in particular, the go-getters, the grinders, the performers, whatever label you want to put on us, it's very hard to admit to your queen you're wrong, because you're supposed to be protector, provider, presider, all the things we've been labeled with, right? And those are honors at the end of the day. And it's like it's just like the Spartans. Hey, better come on with your shield or on it. But it was a dumpster fire. So I was lying to her, and basically at the event, I was 1 of 9 out of 50 to graduate. And I was 1 of 9 out of 50 to graduate. And my teammate, Kirk Deligianis, died at my feet. And I was with him every step of the way. And that's when I basically knew that man was put in my life for a reason, absolute freaking reason. And he left 2 beautiful sons behind and a wife. And people would say, well, that's insane. Why would you do that? That's selfish. Well, you know what? You can either live full and die empty, or you can live empty and just basically die empty. And that's just the truth. But it was crazy how he was placed in my life, because going back to that statement, you can't mistake movement with progress. And brother, we went through the shit together. I'm talking about cleaning him up. I'm talking about, and I can go into that real deep, but immediately it's weird how the universe works. I get a call that said, hey, I want you to be on a podcast. And it was really a Christian radio show. Well, at the time, I did not believe in God or Christ. And if you don't, guys, believe in something bigger than yourselves. That's all I tell people. Believe in the universe, a leaf, whatever, right? For me, God is inside all of us.
Yeah.
All right. But I didn't believe in the Christian radio show asked me to come on, and I told my story in full, like no filter. We'd been in therapy for 2 freaking years. Why did I do that? Because I just saw a man die living at my feet.
Yes.
And how disgraceful would it be if I did not go full tilt, full send after seeing that?
Yeah.
He gave me no excuses, zero room for excuses.
Yeah, the mirror was put right there, wasn't it?
Oh man, and it's one of those that your why is directly connected with your who, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Your who is powerful, if not 10x more powerful. They're intercorrelated, right?
Yes.
And the who's in your life are the ones that are going to help you figure out the hows. You just got to understand it. And it's almost like an omen. Again, going back to the book, The Alchemist, it's almost like an omen in that regard. Well, I ripped it off, and I ripped all the mask off, all of them. But guess who had never heard it? My wife. And I thought I had made all this progress, and I did. Don't get me wrong, and I did. I now gained all the training and the tools and the zero excuses. She's like, hey, if you can do that, why aren't you being the man I dream of at night and getting to wake up to in the morning, right? Quit making excuses. Baby, I'm glad that we're making, more money. The lifestyle's getting great. We can go eat and do things that we want to do. We don't have to return barbecue magazines anymore.
Yeah.
But that actually started the real hero walk at that point in time.
Absolutely. What a great story. And I love the points that you've made there. We talk a lot also in our work about how we self-sabotage ourselves, right? And we do that through limiting beliefs, and we don't make that connection between, and I like how you made the connection between our why and who. Like, I'm the kind of man who is, and that's one of the sentences I challenge the men that we work with, is I'm the kind of man who, and whatever you put after that, that's who you are, brother. That's who you're going to show up to be.
Yeah.
And if you're not, and it makes you uncomfortable when you say that, well, then you know exactly where the work that you need to do, where it resides.
Well, and it's been a 5-year, and that's why I tell people, like, it's been a 5-year process to get back where I am. And in Psalm, our official insignia is the Phoenix, and it stands for rebirth. And it's not earned in a 2-day deal. It's earned. You go through a board process. It's almost 3 years. Because for me, it would have been a facade. And we have a saying, don't meet the standard, be the standard. That's a tall drink of water.
Yeah.
It's a tall drink of water, because you got to remember, guys, we're all perfectly flawed. So give yourself some grace.
Yes.
I mean, we were created to be perfectly flawed, and that's the most perfect thing about us.
100%. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So it's been, and that's how Psalm really got it started. After Kirk's death, I looked around. I was really disenfranchised with a lot of men's groups here locally. And I'm one of those that savages attract savages type of cat. And when I say that, you can take a guy that's super, super vulnerable, and you insert him in a new environment with a network that increases his net worth physically or mentally, right? Or even financially for that matter. He becomes a totally new man at the end of the day. And that's how Psalm, it was never drawn up in a business plan. And this, of course, evolved. I'm happy to report. I mean, my wife and I are more in love than we were before we got married. But the only reason is I had to go and put in the work. I had to face the truth. I had to sit in those therapy offices, listen to her cry, and feel the pain, feel the freaking pain. But I had to do something about it, because the hardest thing on the path, on the hero walk, is, especially in a marriage, is talking about it, is reciprocating without expecting anything in return.
Yes.
And it's honestly like a reverse death by 1,000 paper cuts, if you know what I mean. It's a reverse model of that.
Yeah.
But that's all the beautiful vantage points. And that's what the path represents to us in Psalm, is that, don't show up and try to microwave this thing. You're not going to microwave this thing. Life is an endurance game, and it's really easy to get excited in the beginning, no matter what program you start. But who has the endurance muscle? Who has it when you get just your jaw broken, or your mother, like mine, gets cancer, or your sister gets stage 4 cancer, or your son gets diagnosed autistic? You fight how you train.
Yes.
And that's just the truth. And if your training is shitty and your body armor is bad, guess what? You're going to have a tough go at it, and you're going to constantly hit these loops. But yeah, so that's been my walk. And that's the other thing too. I constantly take the walk.
Yes.
These past 2 years, I've been in deep training for 24 hours of Murph world record. And it's just it's going to be my 14 Peaks. If you've watched that documentary, you need to, if you haven't. It's an incredible documentary. It's Project Possible. But the reason why I took that journey is because in the beginning, when I started going down the hero walk, Murph, Lieutenant Michael Murphy, Medal of Honor recipient, that was the only workout that I would do, pretty much. I loved it. I fell in love with it. That man changed my life. He's immortal too. He gave his life for for his brothers. He made the call. And guys, be a man and make the call if you need some help,
Yes.
right? Like if you need some help, make a freaking call.
Yeah.
And that's what we talk about in Psalmaton. And so it has deep, 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 deep meaning to me. And I've been in the deep training for 2 years here at headquarters at Psalm, just constantly just building momentum. But it's to teach guys that, hey, I'm going to give you a reason to live and not exist. And what you want, you can go get. It might take you some time, but what we do in the dark will show in the light.
Yes.
And you have to commit to transforming yourself constantly. This isn't just a one-time deal. Rebirth is a constant thing. Every breath is a new you.
Absolutely.
Told you I could riff, man.
Love the rip, brother. Love the rip. Listen, one of the things in looking at your work there with Psalm is that you talk about, one of the things you talk a lot about is about having it all. And so I wanted to get your take on what do you mean by that? For other guys who would be interested with your work, what does it mean to have it all?
Detachment and letting go is number one.
Yeah.
And that's an old Buddhist fundamental. It's been taught for thousands of years. It's the hardest thing for any of us to go, especially in Western society and culture. And the greatest insecurity I have is control. I like to have control. Well, it's an insecurity. And it kind of goes with the dynamic and understanding that you're not who your personality isn't a permanent fixture, gents, at all. So when I say unlocking the code or freedom, we have a program called Fuel, and it stands for Freedom Unlocked Equals Lasting Change. Now, it's around behavioral sets for lifestyle shifts when it comes to nutrition, sleep, recovery, sex. So it's what Tom Brady has a coach. That's what that program really focuses in on. Mental health, depression, anxiety, the whole 9 yards, the chemical imbalances in our body, so on and so forth. With that being said, freedom is the ultimate having it all. We shackle ourselves so much with the limiting beliefs. We shackle ourselves with just sitting down and watch Netflix after Netflix, knowing we should do certain things, or the corporate world. That's just another modern day slavery piece. Now, I'm not saying that if you love what you do it, man, like awesome. But I would say that 98% do not, right, in that regard. So that's what I mean by having it all, is truly having a detachment, the ability to let it go, to purely live, love, lead, learn, and just leave a legacy full of impact. Because there's 5 things that we all need as men. Number 1's fitness. Yeah. The other one's love, right? The third one is wealth. The fourth one is leadership. But the fifth one, the most important one, is freedom. Mm-hmm. And you can go make all the money you want, but if you're completely miserable, are you truly free? You hear that all the time. The guy that sold his Ferrari. You hear about, Ed Millett talks about it quite a bit. Like, hey, man, I'm worth $450 million, but that shit doesn't matter to me. And then someone's going to say cynically, well, you have $450 million. It shouldn't matter to you. But the fact what he's trying to say is that I'm detached. That does not define who I am.
Right.
You know what I mean? It does. There are more profitable men right now listening to the show who probably make $50,000 that have a loving wife, beautiful kids, take them to the baseball park, maybe take them on a vacation. Do we want to see them expand their lives? Absolutely. I want to see them grow their income. In America, we don't teach anybody really how to do that. Right. I want to see them be economically free, to make money while they sleep and grow their net worth and their top line. I want to see them unconditionally love their wife, even through the hard times. I want their intimacy to be through the roof. I want their kids to make memories with them and experiences, but I can't do that for them. They have to do it for themselves, right? Absolutely. And that's where I always go back to having it all. You have it all is like when you can throw a match on your house, burn it all down, and you have your wife and your 2 kids. If you're married for that, and all you need is a rucksack, some boots, your vehicle, and you're not attached to really anything. at the end of the day. You have your ethos like I started off with.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm not going to let the excitement of achievement, which I'm a goal guy, mine is always filtered through fulfillment. How is this filling my cup?
Yes.
How am I having an impact? How am I transforming myself? How am I bettering other people? How can I emotionally get connected on the good side of emotion with, with what I am pursuing, right? I'm not pursuing $1 million just to pursue $1 million, because guess what? The happiness will be fleeting. You're looking for joy.
Yes.
You're looking for joy. Sorry. I mean, that's, it's a long definition to the question.
No, love the definition. Glad you're, the great stuff about your work is that you are so thorough with everything, Cole. And I've listened to a few of your podcasts, and I was so excited when you guys reached out to get on the show, because what you're doing is really changing, as I said in the intro, is really changing men's lives, not just them, but their families and their communities. And we need to spend more time in that niche instead of worrying about what's happening in another country. Yes, we should be concerned about what's happening to the globe and the world around us. But if we don't take care of our own backyard first, we're never going to be able to take care of anything greater than that.
Yeah. Well, let me reframe what you said. What we are doing, me and you, brother, and our tribes and our brotherhoods and our communities. What's sad in today's world is the scarcity mindset is killing so many groups like ours.
Yeah.
They get so competitive and so like hoarding, like, if you will, that that's nonsense. And that's, when you go to an abundant state, saying, guys, we're here to do the same thing. We're all here to better men, better their families by helping them focus on the things that matter most. And our number one goal is to have an impact, plain and simple, put a dent in the universe, however you want to frame it up.
Yeah.
Right. You become unstoppable force at that point. You really, really do. And that's what kind of, again, I always, on these podcasts, it's a we thing, man. It's a we thing. It takes all of us, brother.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're up here in Canada. You're down there in the US, and
it's hot down here right now where I am.
Yeah.
I wish I was in Canada.
Yeah, we're getting a little cool. Supposed to have some sun showers today, so it should be good. Listen, I want to also talk to you a little bit about why purpose is so important and how purpose has really changed your life.
Yeah, wow. Oddly enough, I've never been asked this question. So I love it. It's because it sobers you to the fact that, and I said it in my ethos, we call it the 1 second contract. And it's no different than what you can find in the Bible, or it's no different from Stoicism. Live every day as if it is your last. Like if you had sand in an hourglass and you truly looked at as, hey, your time's close to being up, and you locked in on a purpose bigger than yourself, you are honestly living to the fullest in that moment. And for me, and again, to become a teacher at whatever you do, you have to go through. I mean, I'm not going to go to a dentist who has jacked up teeth. Let me just be honest with you. So like, I'm not going to take coaching from a man that is reading a script or does not have more ripples in the pond than me. Don't get me wrong. I will mentor and go side to side with somebody, a peer. But with that being said, your purpose is always built out of your pain. Mm-hmm. That's just me. Right now, you can wake up, hit on all cylinders, guys, and say, you know what? I just want to help people. Freaking awesome. Do it. Like, freaking do it and make sure that it's a reciprocity factor all the way around. But when I locked in on my purpose, it was, honestly didn't know what it was at the time. Because when I started Psalm, it was guys came to me here locally and said, hey, man, I want to be a part of what you're doing. I didn't know these dudes. Right. Like I didn't know these guys. It was really it was very crazy. I didn't have a deep connection with them. And at that point in time too, I was very lonely. Alphas, that's the other thing that I'm seeing a lot more, and you're seeing more studies come out. Men are getting lonelier as they age. Sure. And it's just because their networks start shrinking, and let's just say who they were connected with don't really have the same value system, but they keep up the relationship because their wife likes their wife or some crap like that. Yeah. And, so with that being said, that's how it just started really becoming apparent to me that the things that I was saying, but more importantly, that I was doing and help and coaching and just being side by side, shoulder to shoulder. You got to remember, Kirk died. It would be disgraceful to Kirk and his honor if I did nothing with what he gave me, that gift, that treasure. And it was just birth, really, and Psalm did not get its birth until a year after I started really doing all that. And myself and the original founders called it School of Man. And why God put me on this earth is simply to leave men better than I found them.
Nice.
Just leave them better than I found them, man. And that's just how I filter everything now.
Love it. And I like asking that question because I think so many people think that. Yeah, because so many people think that, and even I have to remind myself once in a while, our purpose is constantly evolving. We may have a vision or idea in our minds of what it is about, but when it gets out and actually manifests itself, it's constantly evolving and changing. And to hear that you had that insight and continue to have that insight is what I wanted people to really pick up from that, is that you don't have to have all your shit together.
No,
you probably won't. But
you won't
have to have enough of it together to get started and to do something about it.
And to that point, to really button up that question, I had a call with one of my men in Psalm, and he's a COO of a publicly traded company, and I won't mention names for confidentiality purposes. Sure. But he just moved in this position, and by all accounts, early 50s, great net worth, beautiful wife, empty nester. According to North America, that the resume, you start kind of checking the boxes, right? But that's that's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
But he's unfulfilled. There's no passion in what he's doing. So think about that. He's in a kind of a small abyss right now. COO of a major publicly traded company. And the first thing I did to him, and he also deals with clinical depression. And a lot of men do, 40% of men do, and they just don't want to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
But, catching it before he opened the door and let it in is big growth in and of itself. And then that's what we talked about. And I said, brother, here's what I want you to do. I can teach you all the tactics that you want to know. That you've been with us for 3 years. You've been a part of the path. You've had a heart attack. You've had all these things. But, what guys have to learn how to do is have direct conversations. And you start off by telling them how much they are loved, and you meet them where their needs are, right? What their human needs are.
Yeah.
And that's how I started off. And I basically told him about all that he's done and blessed my life with, my family's life. And I brought in Ava Madison, my daughter, our veterans that we employ through our non-for-profit, and all the stuff. And he just started tearing up, right? Nice. And I said, now I want you to do this. Here's your mission. I want you to take inventory on your greatness. When's the last time you actually wrote down the stuff that I told you that I believe in? I see that in you, but you don't see that in yourself. I said, because what you're figuring out right now is why God put you on this earth. What you're doing does not make you happy. Kind of goes back to, does he have it all? No, he doesn't.
Exactly.
See what I'm saying? So, so that's just, one example of guys that are listening. If you know what joy feels like, and then they're going to go back to, well, how the hell do I make money? There's all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
So we talked about it on the top of the show. You might have to have a side hustle and build it slowly, methodically.
Yes.
While your greatest investor is your core business, and it could be corporate world, which is fine. It's perfectly fine as long as you know where the hell you're going. And when you're ready to burn the boat, you throw a damn torch on it and you go. And we could, man, you and I can ping pong that type of stuff all day long.
Absolutely.
But that all goes back to your purpose.
Absolutely.
It all goes back to just being relentless.
You betcha. So listen, we could have, like you said, we could go on for hours today, but for the closing question here, if there was one thing that we've talked about today, and maybe there wasn't something we haven't yet touched on, what would be the one takeaway you'd want our audience to have from today's conversation?
Vulnerability. I know it's been written about. I've got books on it. It's another thing to apply it. The minute I became ultraly vulnerable, it became a superpower for me. And guys, the most dangerous things you can say to yourself are, what will people say? What will people think? No one cares. Drop the mask, drop the old body armor, read Brene Brown's book. Great, but put it in practice. And I'm talking about doing it with your clients. I'm talking about doing it. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Right? It's your life, brother. If you have stuff on your heart, on your chest, on your shoulders, take that stuff and take it off. And the minute I did that on that radio show, it was the most liberating feeling I'd ever felt, because I thought I had to live a certain way, because that's how I was brought up. And that's my takeaway for all of you guys. If you want to make more money, be more vulnerable. If you want a better marriage, be more vulnerable. If you want a better physique, be more vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right. And be honest with yourself.
100%.
And I guarantee you there'll be one person out there. And I'm not saying you got to go to Facebook, Instagram, all the platforms and make this big manifesto live. But actually, if you're in a men's group and no one's getting better, and it's the same thing year over year, be the guy that steps up and is the guy that said, I'm tired of this crap. This isn't working. Let me lead. And I'm going to lead by example. And this is the crap I got going on in my life. That's what I want the takeaway to be.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much, Cole, for spending time with us today. There is such a thing as having it all, and we just need to do two things, right? We talked about defining it and going after it. And today you really set the foundation for men to do just that. But if someone wanted to get involved and participate in SOM or connect with you, how would they go about doing that?
First place, guys, just pick up our book, schoolofmanbook.com. Myself and several men wrote it. Talk about vulnerability. These guys put their heart on paper. I mean, Rick Pina, such an amazing man, talking about sexual abuse, to Sean McMillan, to Doug Powell, Philip Iverson. This isn't my book. This is Sam's book. And what we're doing is giving you permission to be a real man. That's what a real man is in our book. So go to schoolofmanbook.com and then go to schoolman.live. Take the battle guide challenge. Quit using a shotgun approach. Start using a rifle approach. That's what started helping me when I started focusing on the simple things and creating these beautiful rhythms of meditation, breathing, coupling it with the 5 a.m. mindset, the 0 dark 30 mindset. 10X was inevitable, gentlemen. So that's the best way to get involved. And through that, you'll be introduced to the path. And that's just, it's a beautiful ride if you want to take it.
Right on. Well, I'll make sure all that information is in the show notes so people can reach out and get a hold of you, Cole. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. Really appreciated it.
Extremely grateful, brother.
Thank you for listening to the Revolutionary Man Podcast. Are you ready to own your destiny? To become more the man you are destined to be? Join the brotherhood that is The Awakened Man at theawakenedman.net and start forging a new destiny today.